Okay, we're back. Today I'm going to be reading Chapter 2 of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, written by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. It's entitled Masculine Potentials. Those of us who have been influenced by the thinking of the great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung have great reason to hope that the external deficiencies we have encountered in the world as would-be men, the absent father, the immature father, the lack of meaningful ritual process, the scarcity of ritual elders, can be corrected. And we have not only hope, but actual experience as clinicians and as individuals of inner resources not imagined by psychology before Jung. It is our experience that deep within every man are blueprints, what we call hardwiring, for the calm and positive mature masculine. Jungians refer to these masculine potentials as archetypes or primordial images. Jung and his successors have found that on the level of the deep unconscious, the psyche of every person is grounded in what Jung called the collective unconscious, made up of instinctual patterns and energy configurations probably inherited genetically throughout the generations of our species. These archetypes provided the very foundations of our behaviors, our thinking, our feeling, and our characteristic human reactions. They are the image makers that artists and poets and religious prophets are so close to. Jung related them directly to the instincts in other animals. Most of us are familiar with the fact that baby ducks, soon after they are hatched, attach themselves to whomever or whatever is walking by at the time. This phenomenon is called imprinting. It means that the newly hatched duckling is wired for mother or caretaker. It doesn't have to learn from the outside, as it were, what a caretaker is. The archetype for caretaker comes online shortly after the duckling comes into this world. Unfortunately, however, the mother the duckling meets in those first few moments may not be adequate to the task of taking care of it. Nonetheless, although those in the outer world may not live up to the instinctual expectation, they may not even be ducks, the archetype for caretaker forms the duckling's behavior. In a similar way, human beings are wired for mother and father and many other human relationships, as well as all forms of the human experience of the world. And though those in the outer world may not live up to the archetypal expectation, the archetype is nonetheless present. It is constant and universal in all of us. We, like the duckling that mistakes a cat for its mother, mistake our actual parents for the ideal patterns and potentials within us. Archetypal patterns gone awry, skewed into the negative by disastrous encounters with living people in the outer world, that is, in most cases, by inadequate or hostile parents, manifest in our lives as crippling psychological problems. If our parents were, as the psychologist D.W. Winnicott says, good enough, then we are enabled to experience and access the inner blueprints for human relations in a positive way. Sadly, many of us, perhaps the majority, did not receive good enough parenting. The existence of the archetypes is well documented by mountains of clinical evidence from the dreams and daydreams of patients, and from careful observation of entrenched patterns of human behavior. It is also documented by in-depth studies of mythology the world over. Again and again we see the same essential figures appearing in folklore and mythology, and these just happen to appear also in the dreams of people who have no knowledge of these fields. The dying, resurrecting young god, for example, is found in the myths of such diverse people as Christians, Muslim Persians, ancient Sumerians, and modern Native Americans, as well as in the dreams of those undergoing psychotherapy. The evidence is great that there are underlying patterns that determine human cognitive and emotional life. These blueprints appear to be great in number, and they manifest themselves as both male and female. There are archetypes that pattern the thoughts and feelings and relationships of women, and there are archetypes that pattern the thoughts and feelings and relationships of men. In addition, Jungians have found that in every man there is a feminine subpersonality called the anima, made up of the feminine archetypes. And in every woman, there is a masculine subpersonality called the animus, made up of the masculine archetypes. All human beings can access the archetypes to a greater or lesser degree. We do this, in fact, in our interrelating with one another. This whole field is being actively discussed and continually revised as our knowledge about the inner instinctual human world moves forward. We are just beginning to sort out, in a systematic way, the inner human world that has always manifested itself to us in myth, ritual, dreams, and visions. The field of archetypal psychology is in its infancy. We want to show men how they can access these positive archetypal potentials for their own benefit and for the benefit of all those around them, maybe even for the planet. That concludes Chapter 2. Next time, we'll read the beginning of Chapter 3 on boy psychology. Thanks for joining me.